murder. Sanko licky love up on the dam and the gala holla murder.
Police are come and the gala holla murder. Police are come and the gala holla murder. Sanko kissy love up on the dam and the gala holla murder. Sanko kissy love up on the dam and the gala holla murder. Police are come and the gala holla murder. Police are come and the gala holla murder. Sanko boy, you better run. Sanko boy, police are come. Sanko boy, you better run. Sanko boy, policeman are come.
Sanko chase the love up on the dam and the gala holla murder. Sanko chase the love up on the dam and the gala holla murder.
Police are come and the gala holla murder. Police are come and the gala holla murder. Sanko catchy love up on the dam and the gala holla murder. Sanko catchy love up on the dam and the gala holla murder. Police are come and the gala holla murder. Police are come and the gala holla murder. Sanko boy, you better run. Sanko boy, police are come. Sanko boy, you better run. Sanko boy, policeman are come.
Sanko squeeze the love up on the dam and the gala holla murder. Sanko squeeze the love up on the dam and the gala holla murder.
Police are come and the gala holla murder. Police are come and the gala holla murder. Sanko left me love up on the dam and the gala holla murder. Sanko left me love up on the dam and the gala holla murder. Police are come and the gala holla murder. Police are come and the gala holla murder. Sanko boy,
You better run.
Sanko boy, police are come. Sanko boy, you better run. Sanko boy, policeman are come. Sanko,
You better run.
Sanko,
Police are come.
Sanko.
You better run.
Sanko boy, you better run. Sanko boy, police are come. Sanko boy, you better run. Sanko boy, policeman are come.
Sanko licky love up on the
I'm in the mood. I'm feeling rude. I'm feeling hot. I want to run. The feeling exciting. So darling, let's do something. I wanna rub my body on your body. Body on your body. Let me rub my body on your body. I wanna rub my body on your body. I wanna rub and love him. I wanna rub and kiss him. I wanna rub and jam him. I wanna rub and rub him. I wanna rub my body on your body. Rub my body on your body. Let me rub my body. Rub my body on your body. I just get paid. I want to play. The vibes is right. I wanna hug up tight. No time to waste. I wanna work my ways. So come on, babes. Give me a taste. I wanna rub my body on your body. I wanna rub Well, you know, I'm feeling, 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 I'm feeling. I'm in the mood, I'm feeling rude, I'm feeling hot, I want to run. The feeling exciting, so darling, let's do something. I wanna rub my body on your body, my body on your body. Let me rub my body on your body. I wanna rub my body on your body. I wanna rub and love up. I wanna rub and kiss up. I wanna rub and jam up. I wanna rub and rub up. I wanna rub my body on your body. Rub my body on your body. Let me rub my body. Rub my body on your body. I just get paid. I want to play. The vibes is right. I wanna hook up tight. No time to waste. I wanna work my waist. So come on, face. Give me a taste. I wanna rub my body on your body. I wanna rub my body on your body. Let me rub my body on your body. I wanna rub my body on your body. I wanna rub and love up. I wanna rub and kiss up. I wanna rub and jam up. I wanna rub and rub up. I wanna rub my body on your body. I wanna rub my body on your body. Let me rub my body on your body. I wanna rub my body on your body. Well, you know.
Hello, this is attorney Shellen Washington, owner and founder of the Washington Law Firm located at 455 Utica Avenue in Brooklyn, New York. We're specialized in medical malpractice, personal injuries, matrimonial law, and landlord and tenant. If you're in need of legal representation, please give us a call today. The number to call is 718-877-3100. Consultation is free at no cost to you, so call us today to see if we can be of any assistance to your legal needs. Again, the phone number to call us is 718-877-3100.
If you are looking to have your statutory declaration, affidavit of income, identity, damage or lost passport, lost license, tenancy agreement, agreement of settlement, power of attorney, last will and testament, and certification of documents, then you need to visit the Alistair Collins firm, located at the Killian Mall, 162 Lamaha Street in Georgetown, between Camp and Waterloo Street. Alistair Collins is a commissioner of oaths and a justice of the peace. Make certain you visit him or call for more information at 649-6410 or 685-6448 or 503-1451. And there's adequate parking available. Go down to the Alistair Collins firm and have all of your legal issues settled and brought to the fore. Alistair Collins firm. Contact them at Alistair Collins firm.
All right. Hey, guess Cat. Good evening to all of you. It's just a few minutes after 9 o'clock. It's the 21st day of October. Sorry about that. The 21st day of October. It's getting down to crunch time, meaning that it's almost the end of 2022, getting into 2023. Lots of things should be in store politically. The fight should be or should intensify. The opposition, they should just wake up from. A lot of them are basically in a deep sleep. They need to get up. They need to confront the PPP. They need to stop worrying about what the PPP may think about them when they protest. These are things that they need to stop worrying about and to just be the opposition that they ought to be. Simple as that. Because do you think that the PPP got any concern at all as to how they go about with their protest? When they were in the opposition, and in fact, they should have been still in the opposition, they were out there protesting in front of the office of the president. They were protesting wherever. Everywhere they were protesting. They were protesting the cemetery. They were protesting in strip clubs. They were protesting around the cathedral in the evenings when they don't get through with whatever service that they went out there for. They protest. Whatever it is, they protest and protest and protest. And they just didn't give a damn how they protest. They beat people. They basically beat police officers. They beat nurses. They firebomb school buses and all manner of things. They just didn't give a damn. They went into the Pegasus. They protested. Again, they just don't give a damn. But these guys in the opposition, they want to be church boys and they want to be church girls and they want to do things properly. And oh, this is not, I'm sorry, you guys can't see my face when I'm doing this, right? You guys got to take a look at the Village Voice. And I do hope that you go in online, that is, and you read what is in the Village Voice and you share the Village Voice. Some of y'all sharing some things with individuals that should not be shared. Some Moko individuals y'all sharing, dressed as the Buckingham Palace guards and all. Those are dotish things. Don't share it. Don't share those individuals. It's a waste of time, waste of energy. Share the Village Voice. Come on, guys. Share the Village Voice. Now, I almost missed the point of what I was talking about, right? But let's get back to the protest. Thank you so much, Pinky Vaughn. And Pinky Vaughn and these guys got to get some sort of compensation. Unfortunately, we can't compensate you guys in that sense. But what we will do is say hello to Pinky Vaughn and thank you, Pinky Vaughn, for always saying, share the link. Thanks to those of you who always say that. Who is it that did that earlier? Garfield, Collins, and others. Thank you guys so much for doing that. There's someone who is celebrating her birth anniversary today, Denise Bancroft Collins. I don't know how old she is, maybe in her 30s, maybe late 20s, but Denise Bancroft Collins, happy birth anniversary to you. And anyone else who probably might be tuned in right now who is celebrating their birth anniversary, happy birth anniversary to you. If you're celebrating a wedding anniversary, happy wedding anniversary to you. Whatever anniversary you're celebrating, happy anniversary. Okay? All right. It's the 21st day of October. Again, my name is Mark Benshop. Yep. Mark Benshop. Good evening to all of you beautiful people. I don't know what the operator is doing, still has the Village Voice up there. Maybe he's being paid at the site for advertising Village Voice. I don't know, but Lemon, whenever you're ready for me to rock and roll and the people to see my face, just let us know and get the Village Voice off so that, thank you. So we can begin our program this evening. Good evening to you guys. It's Friday. It's the 21st day of October. And, you know, oftentimes you say, thank God it's Friday. It's payday for many of you. Sorry about that. Good. All right. Sometimes I get a little carried away, and my apologies. I And we'll be joined later on by, who's it going to be my company this evening? Not J.R. Crawford, not Wayne Caesar, not anybody out in Guyana, but we have the attorney at law, Shalon Washington. I have some questions concerning the Caribbean Court of Justice. I want her to break some things down for you guys, so she will be on in just a few minutes' time. But before that, hey, let me continue. The PPP, wherever they go all over. They raise their skirts. They don't care what they're wearing, politically speaking, that is, whether it's red, deep red, whatever it is, whether it's beat up, bust up, rip up. They don't care. They go around the place. They lift their skirts. They just protest. They don't care who they beat up. They don't care where they protest. But the guys in the opposition, we've got a strategy. We've got to be careful, and we've got to be mindful. And who the heck? Come on, go out and protest. To hell with what the PPP thinks. Who cares what the PPP thinks? The PPP has no moral authority to pronounce on wild protest and these things. Look at how they protest. Seriously, look at how they protest. And look at how when members of the opposition protest and fighting for justice, real justice that is, they're not being treated properly by the police force. We have lots of examples of that. And you guys want me to show you guys a recent example of how they treat opposition protesters compared to how they treat their people when their supporters protest. They treat them like they're angels, right? The police are afraid to touch them. Now, I'm not saying the police should touch anyone. I'm actually not saying that at all. Well, let's show you how they treat protesters in mainly areas that are considered to be strongholds of the coalition. This is how, and when the people are fighting for justice, real justice, this is how they're being treated.
Mr. Watts, he is armed himself. Shots, watch it, tear gas. Light rounds, also I can see that.
So that's exactly how they treat supporters of the coalition and supporters who are fighting, who are standing up and fighting for justice. That's how they do. They lose the goons in the Guyana police force to do exactly what you just saw there, brutalizing citizens. But far worse happened in bad settlement, and nothing. They didn't send the police after anyone. You didn't hear any sort of cry. You didn't see any letters in the letters column that policemen were beaten up, policemen were chopped up. That's a fact. I'm not spreading propaganda here at all. A police officer was chopped up. He was at the New Amsterdam Hospital, or I believe one of the other hospitals there on the west coast, Demerara. All these things happen. And then a nurse or nurses were beaten, dragged out of minibuses. They were beaten. A school bus was firebombed. You're not going to read the letter writers or in the letters column. You're not going to read people say that they are, upset about these sort of things and why no justice. You're not, because they feel that it was justified. They feel that they were fighting for democracy. I heard one pundit saying, comrades, and he wasn't praying, among an altar. A pundit, that is, a pundit stood on the podium and he didn't sing, he wasn't chanting anything, he wasn't saying Tomewa Mata Chapita, Tomewa Bandu Shabigan, Tomewa. He wasn't doing that. By the way, happy Diwali to our Hindu brothers and sisters around Guyana and around the world. But let's get back to that pundit. The pundit actually said, comrades, you have powerful people on your side. Powerful people. Of course, the powerful people he was talking about was the ABC representatives in Guyana. And that's the impression they were conveying to individuals. So in other words, their atrocities, their crimes were justified in the name of a so-called free and fair elections that they were supposedly fighting for. They were being brainwashed into thinking that somebody stole the elections from them, when in fact it was the reverse. That's the PPP, along with some elements of the ABC representatives in Guyana, stole the elections from the people and handed it to the corrupt, the notorious PPP regime. That's exactly what happened. But you're not going to read the letters, the letter columns talking about justice and who was beaten. A school bus was bombed. Nurses were beaten. Policemen was chopped. Policemen were beaten and chased and stoned. Other citizens were beaten, chased, stoned, robbed. All these things. You're not going to hear it. Now, look at the letters column. You're going to see one Moko Jumbi, one Paku, right? One individual who was in prison for slapping up a 13-year-old girl, over a man. I'm sorry, over something that, men fighting for boys these days, God in heaven knows what's happening, right? Men fighting for boys these days. But look at this story. This guy, this culprit, Rogers, some whatever Aussie Rogers or Aussie Rogers, went and was remanded for a 13-year-old girl, slapping or assaulting a 13-year-old girl, was remanded to prison. Now, again, he beat, according to video evidence, another woman. This time it's not 13-year-old, a woman by the name of Bharat. Quite coincidental, Bharat. The woman name is Bharat, but not that woman that you guys may be thinking name is Bharat. This is a woman out in Bath Settlement, was, according to video evidence, slapped up by this goon, who is very close to Irfan Ali, right? Very close. And then you're going to see the outrage, right? The letters in the column, the newspapers calling for the condemnation of this goon beating up that woman. Of course, I join with them in the condemnation of the beating up of the woman. But here it is, I'm talking about the hypocrisy. That what that goon did is unacceptable, should never be condoned. But what about the nurses who were beaten up, badly beaten up? They're going to get any condemnation by the very people who are condemning this goon now, rightfully so? What about the condemnation of the school bus that was bombed with school children inside, firebombed? Aren't they going to have any, the same people who are pretending as though they're so righteous, and they're going to call for condemnation? They never called for condemnation for that. They never condemned the beating and the chopping up of a policeman. They never. So you see the hypocrisy there, right? You guys see the hypocrisy. You know exactly what I'm talking about. I see here our operator sent a message that we have attorney at law Shellen with us. And by the way, this is not Shellen. This is not our attorney at law, Miss Washington. This is a man who is pregnant. And this is a true story. Whenever you're telling your kids a story, a bedtime story, say to them, once upon a time, there was a man named G-Com. And G-Com was pregnant for the longest while. And the pregnancy that we're seeing here is a bloated voters list. So this is the bloated voters list. For the long time, this bloated voters list was there, right there at G-Com. And this is what the installed PPP regime is presenting to us again. But you see the belly getting bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger. And God in heaven knows when this thing is going to deliver justice for the people of Guyana, for free and fair elections. Since I was a little boy, I was hearing in school, I was the first to put my hands up. In fact, I was the brightest in that classroom. Okay. All right. Crawford and others can attest to that. Ryan Crawford, J.R. Crawford, all of them could attest to that. So I was the first to put my hand up and say, teacher, the population of Guyana is 750,000 people. That was many years ago. Many, many years ago, the answer was 750,000 people. Now, I heard from my father, who said that when he was in school at Wellington Park Primary, of course, they call it something else when he was attending school, he was the brightest too. You see, I come from a very bright family, right? Unlike Irfan Ali and those guys who basically sat at the back of the class, eat shrimps, eat crab curry, eat baigan choker, eat cocoa, eat black pudding, and all sort of things. And they weren't bright. And so my dad put his hands up and he said, 750,000 people. That was his time. And so the point that I'm making, even my son who grew up in Guyana, well, spent a lot of time there in Guyana, Ryan, he would put his hands up too and say the population of Guyana is 750,000 people. I'm sure that attorney at law, Shellen Washington, when she put her hands up, she also said 750,000 people. There she is smiling. Good evening to you, Miss Washington. How are you doing?
Hi, good evening, Mark. I am doing well. And again, thanks for having me on your show. It's always a pleasure to be here.
Thank you. But when you were growing up, and you did say in one of our programs that you were originally from Linden, am I correct?
Yeah, that's correct, Mark.
So when you were growing up, what were you told the population of Guyana?
750,000.
Let me see in the comment section if any one of our listeners heard otherwise. 750,000 people. We get some folks who are 102, 103 years old, and so they can let us know what was the population when you guys were growing up. Was it 750,000? You mean to say that it hasn't gone up by 1,000? It hasn't gone up by 100? It is still 750,000? Now, attorney, again, nice to see you. But let me ask you this question here. Local government elections is around the bend, as they would say. March 13th of next year, they have the date that is slated for local government elections. The population is still 750,000 people. 750,000 people. I noticed one listener, Brenda Casey, saying 835,000. I've never heard of 835,000 at all, Miss Casey. I've never heard of that. You see, everybody, almost everyone is saying 750, 750. It is consistent across the board. Now, this is new to me, Miss Casey. 835,000? What year was that? Please give us the year. Eon Bino, you can tell Eon Bino. And them guys, Eon probably touching a little 90. We see Sharma A. Court is saying 850. This is the first time that I'm hearing these figures. And I'm not being, kind of like ridiculous here with what I'm saying. This is the first time that I'm hearing 850, 800. And the other one, Miss Cassie mentioned, is 835. Have you heard anything other than 750,000, Miss Washington?
I have never, I've never heard that before. That would be new to me. If the population has grown, that is kind of news. And I would expect it to grow or reduce either way. But I know we've been getting immigrants. So migration is one of the factors that contributes to population growth. So I would assume it went up considering a lot of Brazilians and Venezuelans has been going across the border.
Well, I also have, one child in Guyana, one. And one expect that population, the number would go up from 750,000 and one, but that hasn't happened. But we've had people who migrated to other parts of the world. Sometimes when you check the records of persons who left Guyana permanently, it's 20,000, 25,000, and so forth. So the population could very well be about 600,000. We have more Guyanese outside of Guyana than we have inside. And sorry, go ahead.
I think what happened, Mark, is we don't have a proper census or a proper way to keep track of the people in Guyana. So if people are migrating, I don't think proper records are maintained. I don't think censuses are conducted on an annual or at least every 10 years to keep track of who migrated to Guyana and who migrated away from Guyana.
Absolutely. There's nothing, but they started this propaganda by having folks going around now saying that they're having a census right now. I noticed one of our opposition member of parliament, that's Ganesh Mahipal, posted on his Facebook page. He's all excited. They're in his house, counting them. I'm like, Ganesh, they're not counting you guys. You guys are not being counted. Don't get carried away, Ganesh, at all. But on a serious note, what is your take? As they claim the population of Guyana is 750,000 people still now, and the voters list is 600, almost 700,000. What's your take on that, ma'am?
I'm not sure that is accurate because what are they counting? Are they counting only adults or people who are eligible to vote? That cannot be accurate because if you're saying that this is the population, 750,000, and then we have over 600,000 who are eligible to vote, that is obscure. First of all, a population includes minors, it includes elderly, well, minors and adults. Minors are not eligible to vote, but adults are. And if you're telling me that 200 and something thousand people in our, well, that's not even 200 and something, that's a little bit over 100,000 consist of minors and they're therefore ineligible to vote. And then the bulk of the population is adults, which is over 600 and something thousand. That list cannot be true. Something is definitely wrong with that because any person would know and analyze to themselves that mostly the majority of the population has to be youth, it has to be minors because they're the upcoming generation. And then you have the older population, everybody over the age of 18, adults who are eligible to vote. It cannot be that majority of the population in Guyana is adults and the small tiny minority are children. That means that our population is dying because if you have most of the people are adults and lesser children, we have an aging population, and that would lead to at some point to a reduction, a significant reduction in our population or in the count of the amount of people in Guyana. So that can't be true.
All right. We know in other parts of the world, for example, in the US, once you attain voters' age, you are registered to vote. And once you're registered to vote, they give you the location where you have to vote and so forth. You cannot be a minor and register. Unfortunately, in Guyana, as soon as you attain the age of 16, you have to register with GCOM. They're not saying that there's another institute or agency that you have to register with, but you have to register with GCOM. You're given an ID card, and then your name is placed on the list. So that they're not explaining to people properly that a bulk of persons who are on that list who ought not to be on a voters list. Now, a national ID card is one thing, but to have that national ID card come from an electoral body, an electoral agency, becomes questionable because there are folks on that list who are not of age to vote. And then there are thousands of other folks who are on that list who are either at Liripentir Cemetery or Kilmarnock Cemetery or Evesham Cemetery or Christianburg Cemetery or wherever it is, right? They are on that list. Thousands of persons who are dead are on that list. And GCOM has not cleansed that list, and hence the confusion. But here is where comes the corruption. That a corrupt political party like the PPP could include lots of dead people and put them in the ballot boxes and say they have voted, even though those persons are dead. And then there are persons who are on the list who have not been in Guyana for over 10, 15, 20 years. Their names are still on the list. And this is what they're failing to cleanse. This is what they're refusing to cleanse. And therefore, the opposition might be onto something. Clean the list. But here's my question. Here's my concern. In 2015, the opposition won the elections. Free and fair, straight. They won the elections. But when they won the elections, the list was almost 600,000 almost 600,000. Another questionable list, bloated indeed. But now that when the coalition was in office, one probably would have thought that that was the right time to clean the list, to cleanse the list, clean it up. Don't complain now. You had an opportunity to clean the goddamn list up. Sorry that I used that term. My people, those who are listening, know that I'm a church guy. But here's what Mr. Bino is saying. Mark, the population declined. I will send you a social study book to verify his claim. Don't get ticklish, Mr. Bino. I'm not saying you guys are wrong. And I'm not saying the population was always 750. But for all my life, I've been hearing the same thing, 750,000. So don't get all worked up, Mr. Bino. And so are you at all, do you think that people are going to have confidence in GCOM, knowing that the list is so bloated? How could they get confidence in the result or the process? Your take, Ms. Washington.
Mark, I don't believe there's any way for any of us Guyanese to have any confidence at all in the process that takes place in GCOM. The first problem I have with GCOM is that all of the members who serve, or all of the people who are appointed to serve there, they take some sort of political affiliation. And because of that political affiliation, most people will have some sort of bias favoring one way or the other. I think in order for GCOM to be impartial or biased, or to build the confidence of the Guyanese people, we would need somebody. I don't know how, I don't know where, so I can't tell you, but we need someone who can stand as the chairperson in GCOM, who has no affiliation with either party. They must not be affiliated with PPP or they must stand very impartial and ready to dispense of their function independently and impartial to the Guyanese people. They must serve the Guyanese people. They're not serving any particular party. So the minute the chairperson is serving any political party, that's going to be an issue right there. Because first of all, they're appointed by a political party. So that in itself brings its own problems. Versus if we just have independent persons run and are elected to function there. And the second problem is the list, like you mentioned. The list has never been addressed. No one has ever gone into GCOM and said, listen, we need to address this list, which lists minors as potential voters, which cannot happen. We know the Constitution, and we do understand that a person has to be at least 18 years of old in order to vote. So if it has persons under that age, they need to be removed. Like you said, the list needs to be cleansed. Remove every person who is ineligible, including dead people. We do know that Guyana have a high, very, very high mortality rate. And I'm very, very certain that that list is not revisited annually. You see, here in the United States, we have a process where when a person dies, that social security number goes into a master file, so that once it enters that file, everywhere else, that information, every single government agency, that information is shared with. And therefore, those agencies are aware that if this social security pops up with this name, this person is dead. On the other hand, in Guyana, we don't have any such checks and balances. I do know we have a TIN number, and that was implemented under the current Commissioner General for, I think it's revenue, inland revenue. So I think he assisted in implementing that system. But other than
it's called GRA now.
Yes, GRA. Thank you, Mark. So I think,
and the person you were referencing was Clarence Chu.
Okay. So other than that, Mark, other than having that TIN number, I don't believe there's any other way to track the dead or to determine whether somebody's dead or alive. And up to this day, I don't believe every single Guyanese has a TIN number. So when a person is dead, if the document or the record is not maintained with the Guyana Postal Service, where you get death certificate and birth certificate, then I don't foresee any other way of being able to determine that. And I don't think there's any unified system to track when people are dead or when people migrate, or all the different factors that affects migration and affects population. I
But
don't think we have.
even though death certificates ought to be lodged with the GRA, I believe, the GPO, just like marriage certificates and birth certificates, sorry, death certificates also ought to be lodged. And GCOM has to very often, maybe every 6 months, maybe quarterly, to get a report to work with their counterparts at GPO so that they get all of the death certificates, and from that they'll able to purge the list. But they have been reluctant in doing that. They don't have to wait for a court. The court through, and I've noticed some comments there that the court was approached so that the list can be cleansed. And the court made an erroneous ruling that the list cannot be cleansed. I don't know what law school.
Who is that judge, Mark? Who is the judge that said the list cannot
I don't want to say that it's the acting Chief Justice. I really don't want to say that it was her.
Because whoever would have made a decision not to allow the list to be cleansed would create a whole lot of corruption in Guyana, because it's already corrupt as it is. So to prevent a list from being cleansed, to remove the dead, remove people who are no longer considered Guyanese or have dual citizenship or whatever the situation, it creates its own problem in itself.
Big problem. I've noticed that people are saying here, Sean Anthony Ben is saying it's impossible to find anyone who will be impartial. These people corrupt anybody under the sun, even a former U.S. government official.
It's possible. It's possible to have people who are impartial. It's possible, but it's a process, and I do understand people are saying that the person who's appointed is selected by both parties, but that still doesn't change the fact that that person might not be impartial. I think a more fair process is the way, kind of like we elect certain official into certain public offices rather than having them appointed, because anytime there's an appointment, there's room for corruption,
Or they could have, just like in Congress, you go and you have a majority of folks. In Guyana, we should have for agencies such as GCOM and so forth, that you have a parliamentary, not majority, but maybe a 2/3.
A nomination.
To have these, because once they get in there, they will pull a swing like Claudette Singh. Claudette Singh pretended as though she was on the side of democracy. She pretended, and I know she's a great pretender, because I will say this publicly. Oops, I should not say this yet.
Mark, I'm not too quick to ridicule her, because I personally feel she might have been fearful for her own safety at some point.
You're correct. She was fearful. She knew that there were death threats. There were lots of death threats. And also the threat by then Secretary of State, who threatened to pull people's visas, judges' visas, and judges became afraid as well. Claudette Singh also became afraid right when the Secretary of State said that he's going to revoke visa. And if you check the evidence, that's when Claudette Singh made a U-turn. Claudette Singh, she knew then that what she was doing was wrong, but she was coerced into doing what she's doing now. And that's the sad thing. And if Claudette Singh has a conscience, she will come out right and say it to the public. Well, go ahead, ma'am.
And I think a lot of times too, Mark, it's difficult for those people to recuse themselves. In this country, people resign if they feel like they're going to be placed in a position to, get their integrity to be questioned. A lot of times they recuse themselves, they resign from position, but that's not something you see very often in Guyana, where a public official is resigning from a position. They would rather do what is wrong than to step down. So I think that's a problem that we have in Guyana. They would prefer to do what's wrong than to step down, step aside. I see you holding money.
Sorry, holding up the money doesn't say anything as to what thing that people would rather not step down, but and there's no reason why I held on to this money, because maybe there's a reason, and our listeners could understand exactly where I'm coming from with that money talks. Money
And
talks.
and that's kind of true because once you step out of a public position again, or you ask yourself like, what's next? What are they going to do? There's not a lot to do in Ghana. So a lot of times people would prefer for the financial benefits to hold on to a position rather than doing what's right. Don't sell your soul for a few dollars. Just step aside,
Don't
step
say a few.
down, and do what's right.
Lots of people have done so already for a few dollars. You know why a lot of people sit down and they don't say much and they don't confront the system? When you talk with them quietly, whether they're senior police officers or whatever, you know what they say? Their pension. They got to protect their pension. That is all. So people can be slaughtered, injustices against people. They're not concerned about that. Maybe quietly they might register their disgust. But at the end of the day, I work for 25 years. You think I want to lose my pension? Majority of them are like that. It's about the pension, it's about the money, and to hell with anything else. And that's the problem we have. Nobody stands up and take, well, very few people would take a position and say, to hell with what's going on. I'm going to confront the system. And one such person who has done that so far is the detective Dion Bascom, who decided that he's going to stand up and reveal what is happening. Speaking of Dion Bascom, that detective, are you surprised that the matter has basically disappeared now? We're not hearing much about it.
I'm not surprised, Mark. You and I both know the way things happen in Ghana. When things are exposed, when it's brought to the forefront, people constantly try to push it under the rug. People are becoming wise. People are getting, smart. They're recognizing what's happening. And I'm very, very grateful for shows like yours that try to expose things that is happening in Guyana that should not be. And I think until that day comes when we're going to have the right people in government who's going to stand for the people of Guyana and for justice, for righteousness. And when I use righteousness, I'm not using it in the biblical sense. I'm using it in the sense of just doing what is correct, what is, equitable to the people that you're serving. Until such time when we have the right government in place to do what is equitable to the people and to do what's right to them, I think we just got to keep making this public, exposing situations like you did. You exposed the DPP for what she was doing, and now it's tucked under the rug. She need to do what's right, or she needs to step aside. And Mark, you mentioned the pension. There's a way to fix that, and we had the ability to do it. Make pension vested after a certain number of years. When we make a person's pension vested, then they don't have to be afraid to step out of a position if they're going to be compromising their integrity. And I think Shalimar was in that position where she was compromising her integrity. Well, I don't know if she has integrity, period, because what she was doing was blatantly wrong. It was bold-faced, sending a letter to the Chief Justice. That's wrong. The magistrate should have been allowed to just stay there and dispense of her responsibility as a magistrate over that case. And the DPP should not have interfered because she stepped outside of her scope. That's her integrity there. That's what we're seeing again. People that lack integrity and conscience.
It's funny that you're saying all of this, but nobody in your profession, the legal profession, is standing up and saying exactly what you're saying. Nobody wants to confront the system. Everybody wants to remain quiet, and maybe at some restaurant, they sit, they take a beer, eat some food, eat some black pudding, some sauce or whatever, and they talk exactly what you're saying publicly. Are you surprised that not even one lawyer, maybe except Nigel Hughes in an interview here, he denounced this sort of action, but we're not hearing from anyone else about this
Mark,
particular situation?
I'm not surprised. People have their family to feed in Guyana, and they're afraid of the backlash, the repercussion of standing up for justice, standing up for what is right. A lot of these people that you see, a lot of these attorneys, they have friends in the government, friends in parliament. They get, work from some of the persons in government. So they don't want to compromise their ability to make a living by standing up and speaking out against this type of situation. They want to stay low so that they can continue to earn an income, earn a living, and don't have to worry. See, the thing about Nigel Hughes, he has made his mark in society. Nobody could stop him. They can't silence him. They can't take away his income. They can't limit his ability to earn an income. They can't do none of those things. But for the most part, a lot of the other attorneys are afraid to step up and to say something because they don't want to be publicly involved in speaking up for what is right, speaking up for what is justice. They have their family to feed, and the last thing that they will want is for the government to come down on them. That would be the last thing that they want. Ghana is not a democracy, Mark.
Absolutely. It is not a democracy. We see that every day. And we know that the victimization of people, the political victimization, they don't give you jobs, they don't give you ads. And I don't say this to cry. I'm not a crybaby, but they don't give us ads. And we don't give a damn. Right here at 107, we survive and we find ways that we can survive. They don't give us ads. They believe that people, we should beg them or bow to them. We don't do that at all. And that's what they do to starve people. That's how they victimize people in Guyana. And that is why Lincoln, many years ago, coined this term, economic genocide. And that's what they do. But let us move on. Ms. Washington, you commented earlier, maybe in the month, about the decision by the DPP to write to the acting chancellor of the judiciary, calling for the removal of the magistrate Daly in this Bascom's case. We haven't heard anything from the acting chancellor, but what we have heard is that when Tuesday last, when Mr. Bascom and his attorney Nigel Hughes turned up, the magistrate decided that she is going to recuse herself voluntarily and send the matter to the chief magistrate. The chief magistrate said, no, you cannot recuse yourself. You have no proper grounds in doing so, and therefore you will hear this case. The matter was returned to the courtroom of Magistrate Daly, and she decided that mid-February of 2023 that the trial will begin. That is almost 6 months from now. What's happening here? What is your take from a legal standpoint, please?
I'm wondering if somebody interfered or somebody said something, because I'm not sure. We have this rule in Guyana where an accused is entitled to a speedy trial. And to push a trial that far out, almost 6 months, it's a point of concern to me. And I'm wondering if Magistrate Daly is a little bit afraid to perform her duties in this case, because as we could see, she voluntarily recused herself, even though she had no basis for doing so. The DPP had no, just like the DPP had no basis, no grounds for asking or writing the Chief Justice asking that Magistrate Daly be removed. The same way, I don't think the magistrate had any basis for removing herself or asking to be recused from the situation. So I'm thinking something sinister must have been happening for her to take such drastic measures and then to schedule the trial so far out. Is she going to still be on the bench in 6 months from now? What will happen in 6 months from now? And the real thing, I'm questioning in my mind, what would have prompted her other than fear, other than victimization, retaliation? Because as you know, we have a lot of retaliation on the job in Guyana, a lot of retaliation. When people do what is right, if the government is your employer, you receive retaliatory treatment. So we know this happens a lot in Guyana. So I'm wondering in my mind, I don't know the reason, I don't know what her purpose could be, but I'm having suspicions as to why she would do such thing, or if she was threatened, if she was encouraged to do that. I do not know, but I'm glad the chief magistrate sent her back and told her she has to hear this case.
You know, you mentioned you're not certain as to why she would do this, whether she's been threatened or whatever. But according to sources, the magistrate received death threats, lots and lots of death threats. And from the hooligans in Guyana, some of whom might be connected to the case concerning Detective Bascom, because as you know, the individuals who ought to be brought in for questioning over the murder of Fagundes, they were not, and we're not seeing that done. And so far, the suspect, Mark Richmond, is still out there. And then we have another suspect, Azardine Mohammed. He's still out there. And these guys are moving around as though nothing has happened. Absolutely nothing has happened. So they just don't give a damn as to what's happening in that country at all. But we're glad and we're thankful for people like you, lawyers like you, who are standing up, who are speaking out. And I can understand why you do that, because you're fearless, you're competent. And having said that, we just got a note that you have a victory under your belt, so to speak. And that victory is at the appellate court here in the United States of America, probably the first of its kind. I'm not sure. Lemon wants you to explain, but before you explain this victory and how important it is, let us take this opportunity to say congratulations to you, Madam Washington.
Thank you,
What
Mark.
happened?
Let
What's
me
the
just
victory about?
Thank you, Mark. Let me just be clear. It's at the state level. It's the second appellate department. I received a historical win. For the first time on September 9th, the appellate division second term was impaneled with all Black justices. And my case that was appealed in 2021, in early 2021, was one of the cases that was heard by the justices. One of the first case was heard by them on September 9th of this year. And I received a great victory. My client, not me, my client was treated wrongly by one of the judges in the Supreme Court, who incorrectly.
When you say the Supreme Court, the state Supreme Court.
Yes, let me
Yeah.
be clear. The state supreme. So no one should get mixed up with the federal, because when we reference the federal, we'll say the federal. But this is the state Supreme Court.
And just to let them know that the state Supreme Court is the lowest. The appellate court is higher.
The Supreme Court is below the second department, the appellate term. It's below. So the appellate term is the highest in the state, right?
Continue.
So that's the highest place that you could appeal to from the Supreme Court in the state of New York. And the judge treated my client wrongfully. He's a police officer, and he was improper. The service was improper on him, and the judge wrongfully granted my application on condition. When the judge was supposed to grant the application outright, he granted it on condition that we conducted a traverse hearing. I told him that the best thing for us to do was to take an appeal. And let me make this very clear to all your listeners and anybody who also is a fan of mine, that I do not do appeals. But in this case, because the wrong was so egregious to my client, I decided to take on the appeal. I've only done maybe 3 appeals because I hate appeals. They're tedious. It requires a lot of compliance issues. And this is why I do not serve as an appeal attorney. I only practice in the federal and the state court, not at the appeal level. On rare occasions, I do appeal. And I did take on this appeal because I thought what was happening was so egregious that I wanted to see justice done for my client. So I filed the appeal, and the justices agreed with me, and they dismissed the case in the Supreme Court, which is what the Supreme Court justice was supposed to do in the first place, to dismiss the case, not to grant my client's motion on condition that he do a traverse hearing. He was never served. So I was grateful. I was really happy. And my colleague, he worked with me. He works for me. James Williamson also assisted me on that appeal, and we were just celebrating and happy that we won that appeal.
Yep, and congratulations. It's probably an appeal that would see the cop getting a hefty civil, lawsuit there. You never know.
Well, he won against his ex-wife who had taken him to court and sued him. He was just grateful. He was like really, really thankful that we won this appeal. And like I said, Mark, it's not something I like to do, but if I do have to file an appeal, it takes a lot of time.
Well, lots of people are congratulating you. Lemon is congratulating you. The folks from the nursing home out in Francine, I just got a message from them that they are also congratulating you at the nursing home. And
thank you, guys.
Yes.
Thanks to everyone. Thank you.
Let me just give you a quick plug and congratulate you again. Persons who wish to get in touch with attorney Shellon Washington. She's in Brooklyn, Utica Avenue, 455. Sorry. Her telephone number is 718-877-3100. She does medical malpractice, personal injuries, divorce too. Okay. Divorce. Yeah. Landlord and tenant. So if your landlord giving you problems, call Miss Washington. If your tenant's giving you problems, call Miss Washington. And I think you do a little bit of immigration matters too, or explain to us, please.
Oh, yes, absolutely, Mark. I do have, like I said to you, Mark, I have a team that I work together with. So I do have an immigration paralegal. That's all she does, immigration. So whenever, if anybody has an immigration issue, she works along with me. Of course, I'm the person who ultimately have to review the work and have it filed on behalf of the client. But I do have a specialized immigration paralegal who works with the office.
Again, congratulations to you, well deserved, and I'm sure that part of your victory here, the judges may have been watching you perform excellently right here on 107.1 FM.
Thank you, Mark, and I want to say thank you again to all of your listeners there who were saying congratulations. Thank you guys so much. And I think that that order, that decision is available online. I think all of the decisions from the appellate division are available online. So anyone can literally just pull the decision and read it and see what the judges said regarding that decision.
Congratulations again. Hope the guys over at the Village Voice, hope they're watching and they can do a lovely article on your success, or even your fellow Londoner, Gordon Mosley, might be watching. Who knows? Let's get down to some other business here. Again, congratulations to you. This is what we heard today. The Minister of Home Affairs, the guy who sits there as the Minister of Home Affairs, says with a straight face that no underhand way to acquire a Guyanese passport, says the Home Affairs Minister. And I deliberately put no more underhand, no more underhand. There's always been underhand in terms of thousands of passports that have been issued to questionable individuals, illegal folks, folks who got into the country and they wanted to prop the voters list up, and so forth and so on. But one of the things that I remember was this guy, $5 million reward for information leading to the capture of LGE Shukra Juma. Shukra Juma received a Guyanese passport, a Guyana passport. He was supposedly hiding in Guyana when the FBI and other law enforcement agencies were hunting him down. While he was in Guyana, he received a Guyanese passport. But here it is now, the Robeson Ben is saying no underhand way to acquire a Guyanese passport. Lies, lies, lies. Now that we have reminded the people that this guy was the holder of a Guyanese passport while he was supposedly hiding out in Guyana under the nose of the PPP regime. And we are told that some senior operatives of the PPP regime knew that this terrorist was in Guyana, and they knew that this terrorist had received a brand new Guyana passport. Maybe, I'm saying here now, maybe this is why then Minister of Home Affairs, Clement Roy, had his visa, U.S. visa, revoked. He had promised to say to the nation why, but maybe it had to do with this. Your take on what they're saying, do you believe that these people in the regime would continue with their dirty tricks of handing out illegal passports to individuals?
Mark, my late father always said, where there's a will, there is a way. There will always be a way. And then there's the other one that says, the wiser the stricter the government, the wiser the population. I think one of the things is Guyana is just a country that people just find ways to make money because money is so scarce. Proper pay for civil servants is so limited. It's not adequate for the standard of living that those people working in the passport office will find ways, those officers, to sell passport to make a few dollars. So I don't buy that there will be no underhand way of getting a passport. I'm very sure that if I find somebody and I pay, any one of us go pay money, we'll be able to buy a passport. So when they say no underhand way, you're right, no more, but still the no more probably isn't true, because unless they find a way to track it electronically and to know that it was issued in the proper manner, there's just no way. There's no checks and balances, Mark. And the thing is, when you generate the passport forms, it's not digital, it's not electronic, it doesn't have a barcode on it. There's no way to track it. So I can literally have somebody fill a passport form and just prepare the document and get it issued. It's just no way for them, unless something has changed over the few years from the last time I was issued with a Guyana passport. There's just no way.
There
There's
should
just
be a
no,
barcode. There should be electronic issued, but the
not
corruption
on the form,
continues
Mark. Maybe on the passport, but not on the form.
on the passport. Indeed, not on the form. You're correct, and the bulk of the corruption is right there at in Ropes and Ben's office, because that's where they give out thousands of illegal passports to nationals. And out of the blue now, maybe some guilt trip on the part of Ropes and Ben, that he comes out to say no underhand way. Really? Are people to believe that? There are lots of birth certificates being handed out to people who were not even born in Guyana. And that's another issue. And that is why the opposition should be more robust with these sort of things, because this is a level of corruption. This is corruption. You have passports being sold. You have gun licenses being sold. You have birth certificates being sold. You have lots of things being sold right there under the PPP regime. And so they cannot run away from that at all. But just to remind our listeners that this is what happened. A $5 million bounty was on the head of this guy. We are told that some Muslim organizations knew that he was in Guyana. They sheltered him. They sheltered him, and he was issued with a Guyanese passport. He later left the country. He was in Trinidad. Then he was tracked down. Went over to where he was finally slaughtered. He was killed. Finally killed. He was a terrorist connected to the PPP regime. Terrorist connected to the PPP regime. We're looking at the time is Washington, and there's another issue that I want you to talk to us about. The Caribbean Court of Injustice. Caribbean Court of Injustice handed down a ruling the other day on Petition 99, and it was an appeal brought against the ruling of the Guyana Appellate Court that the coalition won, and the appellate court ruled that Petition 99 should be heard. Anil Nandalal and his goons have something to hide, obviously, with the election petitions, so they rushed to appeal it. The appeal went straight to the CCJ. The CCJ, just prior to their ruling, sent the decision to all of the lawyers involved, including Anil Nandalal, who was a litigant to the party to the appeal. Anil Nandalal on his Facebook page made this post: CCJ upholds our submission in petition number 99. Court of Appeal decision reversed. The people won again. That is what Anil Nandalal did before the court could issue an official statement. Your take on this, please, ma'am.
Mark, when I found out about this, I was frankly surprised, because one of the things is the thing is, I live in a country where democracy is protected, the integrity of the judicial system is protected, and us as attorneys, as officers of the court, we're held to a very high standard in this country. So for me, looking at something like this in the Caribbean or developing countries, it shocks my conscience that the Caribbean Court of Justice would issue a decision and email it to the attorneys. We don't do that in this country. When a decision is issued, the first thing, when it's published, when the justices publish it and the court clerk enters it, then is the time when we're able to get a copy of the decision. Of course, we could get a copy of the written decision after the justices have signed off on it, right? But if it's once it's entered, then everybody, could go get a copy of it. You could get an unentered but a signed copy of the judgment. But none of the judges The court does not communicate with us in that manner. The court will not email to me a copy of any decision. If I want a copy of a decision as an officer of the court, I will be treated the same way like somebody in the public. I have to go to the court and get a copy of that judgment. So for me, finding out that the Caribbean Court of Justice would email the attorneys or all of the attorneys who were involved in litigating this issue before the court, I find that a little bit strange. And that's the type of practice I believe they should discontinue. They should find a way to repeal the rules and allow only that when the judgment is issued generally that the public could see it, then for it to be given to anyone, but not to email to any particular attorney. Because now it appears now that he had insider information that the public didn't have or nobody else had. Why is it that the decision is emailed to these attorneys so that the attorneys have information before the public could even know what the decision is? And to me, that raises some level of suspicion in my mind. And I would advocate for changes to that. And what Mr. Nandalal did, that was wrong. He should have waited until that decision was published to the general public. I don't know what process they use to publish the decision there, but here in this country, we enter it with the clerk, the court clerk. That's the person, once it's entered into the system by the clerk of the court, then that judgment is official. But I don't know, maybe there's no such system with the Caribbean Court of Justice. Maybe the justice just write a decision and then they just email it and that's it. But as far as I know, judges do not communicate with attorneys. Everything goes to the court clerk. And I think this is highly inappropriate that's happening here or that has happened. And then when he says the people won, what people won? What is he talking about? Because that decision didn't mandate the decision of or the sentiment of the public at large in Guyana. That just shows the sentiments of the PPP. Not everybody in Guyana feel happy about this decision because, first of all, the people in Guyana, the majority, I believe, believes that the Court of Appeal had jurisdiction. And why would the highest court in Guyana rule against itself? It contradict if they knew they didn't have jurisdiction. Who best to interpret our own laws than our own justices? It's a shame that we even went to the Caribbean Court of Justice and we didn't maintain the Guyana Court of Appeal as the highest court. I think our late president, Ferb Sampson Burnham, was correct and allowed the Court of Appeal. He did away with the Privy Council. So we don't have the Privy Council anymore. But I am saddened that we even took to the CCJ. We should have just remained with the Caribbean Court of Appeal, not the Caribbean Court, our own Court of Appeal in Guyana, the Guyana Court of Appeal as the highest court in Guyana. Because I think the CCJ makes a mockery of our law. And I don't think that they should be considered expert at interpreting laws that our own Court of Appeal justices sit daily and interpret on behalf of the people in Guyana. And
well said. I am sure that once there's a petition out to remove Guyana from the Caribbean Court of Injustice, that your signature would be on top of the list.
Oh, absolutely, Mark. I would definitely be willing to sign something like that to remove us from the Caribbean Court of Justice. We shouldn't be there to begin with. I don't think they do any justice for us, period.
Well said. That you're not surprised that not even where they have their headquarters right there in Trinidad and Tobago, the Trinidad and Tobago government are not party to the CCJ. Jamaica is not. I don't believe, most of the other Caribbean islands are not party to that either. So that's kind of suspicious, though.
Yeah, but some of the Caribbean islands are still under British, so they still have like the Privy Council, but we don't have the Privy Council anymore. And I saw someone was asking earlier if they could have appealed the Guyana decision to the Court of Appeal in this country, but it can't. It doesn't happen like
Someone
that.
actually asked that. Okay, we'll forgive them.
It doesn't happen like that. But
they're asking that because people are desperate for a change. People see the frustration, they see the trickery, they see the gangsterism at the CCJ level, at the PPP, a bunch of gangsters. People just want change. They want Guyana to return to what it was just prior to these vagabonds being installed. And so we can allow them to pass. People just wanted, I'm surprised somebody didn't say, can we appeal to God? Can we appeal to heaven so that this thing can be reversed? But
we could always appeal to God. He's always there. We could always appeal to him, but he, unfortunately, he will not come and do something that he's already enabled us to do. That's the thing. He has enabled us to fight for justice, to fight for what is right. So we have the ability to do these things ourselves. So he's not going to come down and do what he's already enabled us to do.
There's a calypso that go thing, come down, Father, come down, or a reggae. People sit and wait. You know, the Bible says, work with, what is it? Faith
Faith
without
without
work.
works is dead.
Yeah, you got to work. You got to go out. You don't have to be afraid. Enough is enough. You remember the story in the Bible with Jesus Christ in the synagogue and those who attended it, and then he just got upset, tired talking to them, and what he did with the table, he got upset. He threw the table down. Come on, guys, get upset. Throw that table down. Throw it
Do
down.
something. You got to get up
Absolutely.
and do something. And Mark, the thing is, to what I think, when they ruled that our court of appeal had no jurisdiction, I'm pretty sure the ruling as regards to whether or not the petition was properly served or timely served, that's a technicality, and there's always ways around technical issues. Every
They
single
weren't prepared to go that route. The Caribbean Court of Injustice wanted to be consistent with the
Mark,
level of corruption
Mark, let me just say
and
this.
regime being illegally installed. Go ahead.
No, let me just say this about the courts in this country. Every technicality, most technicalities as regards to service of documents, they are rules that permit you to find ways, because we use prejudice, whether a party was prejudiced by a late service, or whether if you're not prejudiced because something was served late, they have to be rules around that minor technicality. That's why I'm like surprised with the decision, and I just wish things were different and we just had the Guyana Court of Appeal as the highest court and not the CCJ. And I think we need to get out from the CCJ and stop funding it.
We're funding it with hundreds of millions of dollars that can go to build roads and proper water and electricity. Well, speaking of GPL and electricity, another massive corrupt agency. Lots and lots of corruption. Hopefully, whoever the presidential candidate and the prime ministerial candidate for the coalition, if there is a coalition, but I hope there is a coalition, but whoever the presidential candidate is, should make that a number one priority to the electorate, to say to voters that you vote for the coalition, you vote for them, is a vote to remove Guyana from the CCJ. Remove Guyana from the CCJ, and do not penalize, do not criminalize people for small amount of marijuana. Do not do that at all. I see you shaking your head. Small amount of marijuana, young people in particular are being criminalized. They're dumped into the penal system. They spent a year, 2 years, 3 years. Your take on that, madam?
Well, Mark, I feel about that. That is an issue that is really close to me. And every time I hear about or I see the way these young Black men are treated in the court system in Guyana, it breaks my heart. I was working on a case pro bono in 2017, and as I walk into, I think it was Providence. I walked into Providence, the police station there. They have these young Black boys in handcuffs, barefoot, raggedy clothes, dirty looking, and the conditions alone, it's kind of heartbreaking. Most people, if it doesn't concern them, like if it's not a family member or somebody close to them, they wouldn't care. But this is something that it troubles me, and it has been troubling me for a while, the way we treat our own people. And this stems from the way the police officers interact with the community. We have police officers who are Black, just like these people that they're arresting, and it's like they don't care about the life of their own people. They don't care about ensuring that whatever steps they take, however they handle an investigation, that they take caution as to the life, and handle it with some sort of care. It's a life. What do you think, the person is impoverished? What do you think, their life is not valuable? The life is valuable to somebody. That person has a father, a mother, a brother, a sister, an uncle, and aunt. It's somebody's relative you're treating with that type of in that type of manner. And a lot of times, most of these cases are not properly investigated. It's not properly looked into, and it's heartbreaking. And I believe something has to be done to rescue our young black men from the system in Guyana.
Well said. Uh, I've been through the system there at Lot 12 Camp Street, and I've seen those young people. Lots and lots of young men of African descent, lots of young men of indigenous descent, and even East Indian extraction. And the bulk of them are folks of African descent. I agree with you that something must be done in terms of rescuing our young people. Our young people were, for the most part, destroyed under the 23 years dictatorship of the PPP. We're seeing it yet again. The bogus plan for weed or marijuana is just a bogus plan. They haven't done anything thus far. The bogus call for free education at the university level, all bogus and bogus. Now, all of those things they promised, and they're saying by 2025 now. Now is
Mark,
when they're saying.
don't get me started on the marijuana issue, because
Is high.
let me make it clear.
Madam Attorney, is high time, no pun intended on the high, is high time somebody gets started on the marijuana. But let's hear you, please.
Let me make it clear, guys. I am Christian, so it means that I don't really subscribe to smoking or any type of taking part in any type of activity that could cause any type of damage to your body. But having said that, marijuana has medicinal values. People use marijuana for many, many centuries for pain. It's a pain medication. You could drink it as a tea. It has medicinal values. So when it comes to prosecuting for something that is so natural, it's a herb that grows. It grows bountiful in Guyana. I remember growing up as a child, and you see people on the corner with this thing they're smoking because it's available, easily available in Guyana. You don't have to put it through any process. It's naturally grown. And I'm always confused as to why we're prosecuting people in places like Guyana, the Caribbean, for using marijuana. Why? Why aren't we prosecuting people for alcohol? Alcohol is processed. For smoking cigarettes. Cigarette is something that is processed. You have to put it through a process to get it to what it comes to.
Do you know that they even jail people for a smoking utensil, a crack pipe? Do you know that? They send people for 1 year, 6 months. So the addicts, they jail them and expect them to turn.
That doesn't make sense when it comes to marijuana. I'm not sure, Mark, but I don't think people could really become addicted to marijuana. I think what keeps them going back to marijuana, I don't think marijuana has addictive properties in it. I think what keeps them going back to it is the heightened state of awareness that it puts them into. I personally have never touched it in my whole life.
So that heightened state, when you look at some of all of the PPP supporters, members of parliament behave in parliament, they always seem ready for some next hit.
Right. So, but I don't think it's addictive. I think it's because of the heightened sense of, it heightened your senses, I was told. And I think that's one of the reasons why people keep going back to it. But I think it's wrong to prosecute people for that.
I agree with you. It's absolutely wrong. I don't know how what effect it has, because all my life I've never inhaled it. Maybe been around folks next to them who smoke, passed it next to me now. And I can, without any contradiction, I have never tried marijuana in my entire life or any form of drugs. So, but I am for the abolishment of
the laws criminalizing marijuana.
Criminalize small amount of marijuana and to imprison these individuals. I'm totally against that. And I'm not like Bill Clinton.
On the trafficking level. The trafficking level is a whole different story. Yeah. But
I'm not like Bill Clinton, who said that he smoked but he didn't inhale. I've just never tried marijuana in my entire life, and that's the God's truth. But I am in full support of the decriminalization of small amount of marijuana. So,
I agree. I agree. And Mark, I wanna respond to just one question I saw one of your viewers were asking.
Sure.
They were asking whether or not that petition 99 could be appealed to the International Court of Justice. So I just wanted to make clear that the International Court of Justice only deals with specific court. the specific cases, and in order for any case to go before any particular court, the court has to have jurisdiction. And the International Court of Justice is not like the Caribbean Court of Justice, where we've amended our laws to have our cases taken there for them to make a final decision on it. So it's two different types of jurisdiction, and it's outside of the scope of Guyana's jurisdiction, or the courts in Guyana don't have access to, or
Absolutely.
litigants in
And
that
so
sense. They
the
can't review
Caribbean
a constitutional issue for us.
the Caribbean Court of Injustice is the final court. It cannot go nowhere else. It cannot go to the United States Supreme Court. It cannot go to the International Court of Appeal. It's done with. I've noticed Rhonda Lane. This is the lady that was fined $500,000, even though the prosecutor said in the court that there is no evidence to point that she committed any crime. But yet this woman was fined 500,000 Guyana dollars. I don't know whether there's any lawyer out in Guyana who listening can get in touch with Rhonda Lane and fight her case, because this by itself is an injustice.
Mark, that's the thing. I've always been vocal about this. The police officers who prosecute cases in Guyana are not very well trained. And if a prosecutor is going to stand in court and said that they're not sure beyond a reasonable doubt, all of us know that criminal cases, you must be convicted beyond a reasonable doubt, which means there must be no reasonable doubt before a magistrate could convict you. So I'm not sure if a prosecutor comes and says, well, I'm not sure if she's the one who published this. Why was she even convicted? What was her attorney doing? Was that attorney listening? Was that attorney paying attention? Was that attorney taking advantage of that type of information and then make a motion on behalf of this person? I'm not sure what the attorney was doing. Maybe
because that's the key in any appeal. This is a key point, that this case was not proven at all, and the fact that the prosecutor, according to Miss Lane, the prosecutor did admit that there is no way to prove that Miss Lane actually published those things on social media, because her password was open, her phone was open, and anyone had access around her surrounding, had access to her telephone. That's an easy case to win at all. And this poor woman now has to, when I say poor, I don't mean economically, but we say, oh, the poor lady. Now she has to find $500,000. Wonder, and she's out there protesting for the coalition. But why can't the coalition find a lawyer for her and fight this case? Come on, guys in the coalition.
I agree. That would have been a very easy win, Mark. There's doubts there, and that the prosecutor give that defense attorney those doubts by telling the court, like, listen, we're not sure that she's the one who did this. So there's your doubt. So absolutely. Why didn't she win?
Big doubt. Before we go, Ben again urges Mazaruni prison inmates to be patient as improvement works continue. The people are upset. The prisoners are upset. And when these guys bolt for the bushes, I'm not saying that they should, and then we're going to hear another story. But the prisoners' lives are miserable, horrible at the Mazaruni prison. But here it is, Ben telling the people, look, y'all relax a little bit, man. Y'all relax. Y'all be patient. But then again, that's Guyana, right? And again, we're not saying anybody should bolt to the bushes or anything. We're not saying that. But here it is, another story before we go. The installed regime now is giving out cement and steel rod for home builders to roll out next week. So in other words, companies connected to the PPP, the install regime, will be given millions of dollars to hand out cement and steel rods and all manner of things, another form of corruption. What is your take on these sort of rolling out and cement and just dashing it out like that? Gosh.
Well, Mike, you already know what's going on there. They're giving this type of supplies to, obviously it's going to be to PPP. It's not going to be going to anybody who's from a different political affiliation or political party. And this is the way they appease their supporters, or try to make it look like they're doing something for the people of Guyana by giving them building materials to help them build their properties, build their homes, I guess, for the new lands that they give out. But the Afro-Guyanese, I'm doubtful whether they're going to be beneficiaries or benefactors to whatever the PPP is giving out right now. I doubt.
Absolutely. We're looking at the time. Our operator says it's Friday night. He got to go out with his family. That's a bluff. He going out and take a tups, as they say. Maybe he's heading to Anyway, I don't want to say it because you are also a religious, you're a pastor. I don't want to say Bamba Mali, but he's probably headed to Bamba Mali. Quickly before we go, we are not hearing anything about this. This is how a company, I believe the company name is, somebody correct me there, but this is the brutal beating. This is a gun from that company beating up this guy with a machine gun. Thus far, we haven't heard anything about this matter here at all. Nothing at all. What is your take on how these so-called businessmen could put thugs to beat up other hardworking citizens, and nothing comes out of it?
Mark, is that difficult to guess what happened there? Money, you were showing the dollar earlier in the program, and we know that once the police are bribed, the case or the matter goes under the rug and there's no proper investigation because the person who needs to be compensated is already been compensated, the man who has to investigate the type of situation like this. And the real victim is the guy in the black. He's running. He's probably running for his life.
He was badly beaten,
Badly beaten. So it doesn't take, you don't have to be a rocket scientist to figure out that corruption, one word would answer this: corruption, corrupt practices. That's what's happening there in Guyana. If the police are compensated, I know this firsthand. When I was there, I've seen things got pushed under the rug by passing money to the police. I mean, I've never personally done that because I've always take matters to court and fight the police in the court, because I did realize one thing when I was there, that those police prosecutors are not very witty. One of the things I always did was look at the file jacket. You will always find something on those charges to get over. And if you have the right magistrate who knows the law, you'll always get over with those prosecutors. So I'm sure what's happening here is the business person, the person who authorized this type of beating, must have paid the police to get this pushed under the rug. Police officers are going to accept the bribe, and that's going to be the end of it. And a lot of times it's not just the regular plainclothes officer, but sometimes they go higher up.
Jumbo, we are told that the company's name is Jumbo Jet. Jumbo Jet
paid money, because there's no way you're gonna brutally beat somebody like that and then there's nothing comes out of it.
Jumbo Jet.
I don't see the guy trespassing. I don't see him stealing.
I don't work hard for his money, wanted his spade. Jumbo Jet.
I don't see any justification for this. I don't see any.
Connected to the PPP and all these people, and this is how they believe they're powerful. And I was told somebody has some of these guys travel, so someone should ensure that the Department of Justice get this photograph and get a briefing as to what really transpires with those folks who are the proprietors of Jumbo Jet. But I know we've got to go. But before we go, congratulations to you on your success at the appellate court at the state level. Your closing remarks, please, Ms. Washington.
Again, Mark, it's been a pleasure to be here this Friday night, October 21st, 2022. I want to say thank you to all of your audience, everyone watching here tonight. And I did promise one of your listeners that I was going to give her a shout out, because she came to the office and she sent referrals. I believe her name is Desiree Camacho. She sent me clients. I told her I'm going to give her a shout out once I'm here tonight. And I want to say thank you to all of you who have consistently been supporting me. You've been calling me. You've been bringing your business to my office. I am so grateful for you guys. I thank you guys. I love you guys. And I pray that you will continue to, support my business. Again, if you're trying to find me, the number is there on the screen, 718-877-3100. My name is Shellen Washington. I'm an attorney in the state of New York. You can find me at 455 Utica Avenue, Suite 2R. Again, it's a pleasure being here always, exposing the injustices in Guyana, exposing legal issues, standing up for right and standing up for justice. Again, guys, thank you again also for the congratulations. I saw a lot of you were congratulating me on the victory in the New York appellate second department appellate division. Like I said, again, that decision is available online. Any of you could pull that decision and you can read it. It's a tort case, personal injury case that was brought against my client. I was in the defense position in that case. Okay. So just in case you guys are wondering, thank you again, guys. I have to go. It was nice being here tonight, and God bless all of you. And I pray that God will keep you safe. And I will continue to pray for Guyana, and I encourage all of you to continue to pray for our country. Thank you, Mark.
Thank you so much, Miss Washington. Have a great weekend, you and your family. God bless you.
Thank you, Mark.
Sure. All right, Shellen Washington there, attorney at law. You got her contact information there. Give her a buzz if you have any legal matters. She will definitely take good care of you. So ensure that you got her number at your hand's reach, that you can call her at any time and you can visit her, and a competent attorney would get your job done. Just mention that you heard it right here on Straight Up, and she'll able to talk with you for an extra 5 minutes before the clock start clicking, so to speak. You know what I mean? All right. My name is Mark Benshaw. Before we go, is there any other thing other than the fact that Guyana is what it is under the PPP regime? It's an apartheid state. Lots and lots of corruption at every level. We find, look at this. This is a house, a little shack that costs maybe $150,000. They got it done at $14 million. We have a mayor that is alleged to be smuggling chicken in the back of an ambulance. Allegations, mind you, allegations. And then we have coming up the elections to elect Mr. Ben and his folks back again to head the Guyana Public Service Credit Union. Guyana Public Service Credit Union. Another level of corruption. This is massive corruption. Pay attention to what's happening there. Again, pay attention to what's happening there. We look at, we dealt with this, but this is what we want to just say before we go, that this young man, from top student to lawyer, Guyanese scholar, Sean Shiram. Congratulations to this young man, and we wish you all the best, Mr. Sean Shuram. Congratulations to that young man, and to all of you, whatever you're celebrating, whatever you're doing. Thank you all so much for another great week. If anything happens over the weekend, we will see you guys, but don't forget, all you members of the Guyana Public Service Credit Union, go out and vote for Trevor Ben and his team. Vote for them. It's on the 24th, Vote for them. Vote for Trevor Ben and his team and put them back in office. But for now, Mark Benshaw saying again, God bless you, and God bless all of the beautiful people who have tuned in this evening. Until then, thank you so much, guys.
I'm in the mood. I'm feeling rude. I'm feeling hot. I want to run. The feeling exciting. So darling, let's do something. I wanna rock my body on your body. My body on your body. Let me rock my body on your body. I wanna rock my body on your body. I wanna rump and love up. I wanna rump and kiss up. I wanna rump and jam up. I wanna rump and rub up. I wanna rub my body on your body. Rub my body on your body. Let me rub my body. Rub my body on your body. just get paid. I want to play. The vibes is right. I wanna hook up tight. No time to waste. I wanna work my ways. So come on now, babes. Give me a taste. I wanna rub my body on your body. I wanna rub my body on your body. Let me rub my body on your body. I wanna rub my body on your body. I wanna rub and love up. I wanna rub and kiss up. I wanna rub and jam up. I wanna rub and rub up. I wanna rub my body on your body. I wanna rub my body on your body. Let me rub my body on your body. I wanna rub my body on your body. Well, you know, I feel it, 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 I feel it. Smoke in my brain, I wanna do my thing. Work up a sweat until I soak in wet. Rub your body, show no mercy. Because I'm feeling tipsy, I'm feeling freaky. I wanna rub my body on your body. I wanna rub my body on your body. Let me rub my body on your body. I wanna rub my body on your body. I wanna rub and love up. I wanna rub and kiss up. I wanna rub and jam up. I wanna rub and rub up. I wanna rub my body on your body. I wanna rub my body on your body. Let me rub my body on your body. I wanna rub my body on your